Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the second part of Real Talk. I'm your host, Iqbal, and as I said, I'm having a discussion today with somebody that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I met him about 10 years ago for the first time. He's a councillor, Mohammed Iqbal, one of the first councillors in the city of Leeds, which is the fifth largest city in the United Kingdom. In fact, the first black or ethnic minority and Muslim Lord Mayor of this fair city of Leeds, which is a fast growing hub in the north. It's one of the fastest growing electronic city, as they call it, or digital city, because that's where the government has put a lot of amount of money. And we've seen a number of businesses from the south and government departments move into this area of Leeds, trying to build the economy and sustain it as we move forward. So he has seen a lot of changes, and now I've been asking him how many Muslim councillors we have in the city of Leeds, and he's told me there's 10 fellow Muslim colleagues who are councillors in the city of Leeds. Well, before we went for the break, I mean, obviously I said to you, you must have seen a lot of changes over the years. I mean, the role of the councillor has changed as well over the years, and the structure of the council has changed. I mean, many years ago, there used to be committees. Now you have, a cabinet system, where you have the leader and sort of 10, 15 cabinet members who make all the executive decisions, and the rest of the councillors are there to just scrutinise them. But from my experience, some of that scrutiny work was just a tick box exercise. The members of the cabinet had all the power rather than the ordinary councillors. Is that your experience as well, or is it, am I wrong?
Well, the decision ultimately lies with the cabinet,
yes.
But of course it depends on the ruling administration, whoever's in control. So the policy decisions are made within that party, and then when you take it to the cabinet, it is rubber stamped in that context. And that's in all cases, like in central government as well. It's exactly the same model. Like in central government, you have the ministers, we have the cabinet members responsible for each department. So in that context, the cabinet members have a say in changing and improving services and the vision within each portfolio, how to improve the services. Like we have a cabinet member for development, sees all the development projects, which includes asset management. Then we have cleansing, parks and countryside, adult care, children's services, so all different departments, resources.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have multiple departments.
The particular group, they make the policy decisions, and then they take it to the cabinet for approval, so where you have cross-party representation.
It's the biggest party in control of the local authority.
They
that
make
the
decisions.
Decision. But within that structure, I mean, obviously you have a lot of members. I remember one of the local authorities I used to work for, they had 63 total councillors, 57 members of the Labour Party, and just 6 opposition. I think 2 were Liberal Democrats and the rest were Tories. So I know how they rule the whole place, which sometimes makes it quite easy. But has Leeds gone through a hung council situation as well in the past?
Yeah, we did.
How do you find that?
It was for a spell from 2004 until 2010. It was a hung council shared by Conservatives and Lib Dems.
Right.
And their leaders were alternating every 6 months. So they had that 6 years spell of ruling the council, and they made the decisions then, where the Conservatives were trying to pull all the resources, because they represent the affluent areas in outskirts. So they were pulling resources into their sides, and our policy is to meet the demand on needs basis. So that's where we differed. But there is scrutiny. We have scrutiny boards which scrutinize every department.
And were you chair of one of the scrutiny boards?
No, I sit on one of the scrutiny boards.
Right.
I've sat on housing. At the moment, I sit on health, adult health scrutiny board. So every councillor has to sit on scrutiny board, which has cross-party representation. That's where each department is scrutinised in terms of their performance. So that's how policies are made, and everybody has a right to call in a certain area where they feel any member of council, whether a different party, even if they're not a ruling administration, they have a right to call in on a service or department or provision that is there.
So if you're not satisfied in the way a service is being delivered, so for example, if people are not happy with their bins being empty the way they are, so the councillor for that ward can ask for a reason, for somebody to come and answer why it's being done.
Somebody to ask, come and give us a presentation, and then you are asked questions on how to improve and where the gaps are or what bad experiences you think your constituents have faced. Like I sit on adult health, and there's a huge shortage of dentists. So we had the dentist department, then we have the hospitals come in there and we question them, so even ambulance service.
Do you feel that you are able to make changes and make a difference? Because with austerity now and more cutbacks from the government, both in the NHS, in local authorities, etc., budgets are very tight. How much are you able to influence change in services?
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
It's very, very challenging, because over the years since 2010, there's been a huge pressure on all local authorities to save money, and we've had to shed 30% of workforce without having any effect on frontline services. So that's been huge pressure, and now with further budget constraints, it is, and we've tried to maintain that we don't have a knock-on effect on frontline services, but it's becoming harder and harder. There has been pressure on departments to reduce some aspects and save money and prioritize. It's like years ago you could prune the trees, for parks and countryside. Now that is secondary, because it's not a necessity unless a branch is falling and it's dangerous and detrimental. Otherwise that's a secondary. It's not classed as an essential urgent job. So that kind of priority, certain areas you can't afford to do it. You can't afford to deliver.
And how, obviously people complain all the time about my bins not being emptied, or my roads are not being cleaned, or potholes are not being filled up. You've got potholes all over the place. How do you try and convince your constituents? Because they're looking at you and saying, well, why is it not happening? The council may be seen to be wasting money elsewhere. And how do you manage to get over that barrier that you may have with the people? Because ordinary people, I don't think, understand some of the subtleties of the structure of local government and the way finance comes down from central government.
Well, first of all, where there's a situation that's becoming a danger to residents, then that has to be seen to. If there's a damage to a road which is dangerous and life-threatening or something as such, that's where you have to, as a local authority, deliver and do improvements. But otherwise, you have to be realistic and honest and say, I'm sorry, but this is not classed as a priority due to budgetary constraints now, and blame the other party, blame the Conservatives, which is often the case.
Which is often, all parties blame the other party for the mess that they might be saying. The Tories, when they came in, they said, we came in and the coffers were absolutely empty, the bank was empty, the Labour Party had bankrupted us. In terms of, let me just move to social care. I have been studying some of the issues around social care. As our generation is getting older, the pressures on elderly people within our community are quite substantial, because what's happening now, the traditional family structure is breaking down to a certain extent, because obviously nowadays, in order to have a good quality of living, both husbands and wives are having to go out and work. In the old days, usually the wives, bahu hoti hai, she used to stay at home and the husband used to go to work. And, they used to manage.
Survive,
but now both husbands and wives are going out to work, and they're leaving the parents behind. And I know circumstances where sometimes parents are on their own, so there's a lot of pressure. And generally there's a pressure on social care anyway. Are you finding the same issue affecting the community in Leeds as well, or is it just something that's not happened in Leeds at the moment? Because it's not a very old community, is it?
No, it's a pressure throughout the country. The austerity has had an impact on all cities in the country. Some are managing. We had a briefing the other day and some cities are thinking of having every fortnight, every 4 weeks collection of waste, rather than every week, because of trying to save money. So it has an impact on social care. There's huge pressures in Leeds City Council as well, and we just have to manage on what we've got.
In terms of provision for social care, I mean, do Leeds have any provision sort of which is directly aimed at or the Muslim community, or do we have provision where Muslim elderly people are being sort of looked after? Because I've been trying to find out whether there's any in the region, when I say Yorkshire, if there's a Muslim care home, and I don't think we have one, but we feel that there's a need for one. Do you feel that in Leeds there's a need for a Muslim care home as well? I mean, other faith communities have it as well.
Yeah, the Jewish community have their own care homes. Donisthorpe Hall, there's Arnold Ziff Centre. And I was, in fact, speaking to one of my friends that I think we need to look into that side, because you're right, traditionally it was our responsibility to look after parents, but the community is evolving. And where previously you had one breadwinner and you could survive, like you rightly say. But now, because of cost of living and all the expenses and first-time buyers, the properties are so high, it's becoming increasingly difficult. Therefore, there is definitely a need. We have day centres where, we have the luncheon clubs at various, in Leeds 6, Leeds 8, 2 places, Islamic Centre, the Apna Day Centre, Hamwatan is called. But there is definitely a need for a Muslim care home or something
some
provision for the elderly Muslims, and there isn't at the moment. And I think there is a strong need now, because the younger generation is becoming so British and westernized, where our traditions are lost over the years, where we felt that we had a duty to look after our parents, but the mindset of young children is totally different now.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, it's changing.
Things are changing. So,
and that's what I've seen this and witnessed this as well. And I'm very strong of the view that we'd start people like yourself who are in a position of not power as such, but you can influence policy maybe. That you might want to start a conversation within your political structure to see how, as we move forward, this issue is addressed over the next 5 to 10 years. Do you feel that that is a discussion that you and your fellow Muslim colleagues in Leeds can now start with your sort of portfolio holder or the directors of social care? But more importantly, do you feel that the money would be there? Because that's, at the end of the day, it boils down to money as well.
Well, this is another big challenge. When we start raising our concerns, we're often told the money's not there. It's like when I joined the police when I went on to West Yorkshire Police Authority, as it was called then, and I raised the issue of recruitment of BAME officers, and I was told, well, we're not recruiting because of austerity. So, but genuinely we see that there's a deficit in budget. There is short of money, there's no cash. However, there is a dire need, because we have cultural needs, and to go into a normal care home, our community, it's really difficult because of our food and culture and everything. So I think there is a need. It's a discussion to be held. There is a huge shortage of housing, so maybe some sort of package should be looked into where, because the government is funding housing development. Because there's a shortage, national shortage in Leeds, and I'm sure in other cities as well. But it's something I've actually been thinking about, and there is a serious need for the elderly to look after them.
I'm sorry we've had a truncated program because of the azan and the news, which is something new that has sort of affected this program from now on. But obviously we'll be going to a break very soon, or coming to the end of the program rather. Can I just ask about employment? Obviously, Leeds City Council is a big employer, probably one of the biggest employers after the NHS in that area. Employment opportunities for young Muslims and black and ethnic minority people. People feel that the councils don't have a good reputation maybe. What would you say to young Muslims who might be wanting to look for a job in the local authority? Because in the old days, if you worked for a local authority, they used to say you have a job for life. What are the opportunities in Leeds, and are there opportunities for progression within the council?
Well, I mean, we've got last 2 minutes. What I can say, you need dedication and commitment. I mean, I wasn't a born politician, or I don't have any political background, but what I've been able to achieve, the Lord Mayor, Chair of West Yorkshire Police, because I was passionate about community safety. So if you're committed, you can achieve. Yes, we're going to face difficulties, obstacles, barriers, but you need to be committed. Yes, our counterparts have a better chance of getting a better job, but the opportunities are there. Like, I'm chair of Hamara Centre. We've got 3 vacancies. We've advertised them and nobody has come forward. So often within our community, more youngsters are going into business rather than working for institutes and organizations. And I think if you've got the quality and ability, you should apply to work within these institutes to create opportunities and be role models for your community as well.
Do you feel that sometimes people think that, you know, institutions may have a damaged reputation, and particularly public sector institutions in some cases, that puts them off, and maybe they are wrong thinking like that?
Well, yes, there is that perception, but I've actually seen some successful people. And how did they achieve it? I mean, we've got senior partners in PwC now, you know, a very large chartered accountancy company, multinational. There are people in very senior positions. I've seen senior managers in hospital, NHS Trust. We've got chief officers in Leeds City Council who are Muslim. Shahid Mahmood, Shahid Mahmood, he's moved on to Durham University now. So we have to be, I mean, the key to success is hard work, commitment, and keep trying. And the opportunities, and you know, the opportunities here are better than our countries in back home. So the opportunities are there. We have to work hard.
Would you encourage young people to join the political system, either Labour, Conservative, or Liberal, or Greens, for example? Would you encourage them in the present climate to join these political parties?
Yes, I wouldn't discourage anybody. I think, yes, I would encourage people, because first of all, I mean, as a Labour person, I would say join the Labour Party, but they have to decide which party policies best suits them. And we need to be involved in all parties, and we need to be in those strategic positions where we can influence and shape policies, because that matter to us. If we don't speak up and there's nobody else to speak up for us, we'll be ignored. And the only way is to get involved and speak and be in those strategic roles. Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I'm really deeply grateful to you for coming today. No, thank you for inviting me. Inshallah, you know, in the very near future, I'll ask you to come back and we'll share some more of your experiences, your life experiences, and your thoughts, and your time in politics. I hope you found today's program interesting and useful. I think, you know, having been in public service for many, many years, I echo what Councillor Mohammed Iqbal Sahib said. Unless we are in the room, we're not going to be heard. People out there don't know what our needs are. People don't understand what are the issues that affect us. So I think it's important that we make that time and we engage in some of these institutions if we want to make sure that some of the change is taking place. I know people will say that lots of people have been trying to do that for a long time and we've not seen much change, but I think we have to continue to persist on knocking on those doors and making sure that our voices are heard. And unless until we do that and change the structure of the politics of this country, we will not see much change taking place. Inshallah, I hope you found that useful and it may be inspired some young people. I'll see you next week when I have a lawyer coming in to talk about discrimination. I'll see you there. Take care. May Allah be with you, and may Allah protect Councillor Mohammed Ajib Sahib and his family. Thank you very much, and all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.